The Duchess of Malfi, written by John Webster, is one of the most haunting tragedies written in the Jacobean period. The play is a violent, macabre story of lust, madness, cruelty, and revenge. It's the story of a noble Italian widow, the eponymous Duchess, who secretly marries her steward Antonio and bears his children. Her two corrupt brothers, Ferdinand and the Cardinal, enraged by this act of female self-determination across the class boundaries, begin to spy on the family in a conspiracy against her happiness that ends in psychological torture, mutilation, and even murder. When the play was written, times were changing in a big way at this historical moment. With capitalism rising, English society was moving away from the old social model where the prince was your source of identity and your place in life was determined by where he saw you socially in his eyes. We are transitioning into an age where your status can be achieved by merit, favour, or even bribery. People's roles are turning into their jobs and their labour as value in itself. During the shift, there's growing anxiety about the mixing of social classes, about people like Antonio moving up in social ranks. Throughout the play, the Duchess is warned about marrying beneath her status, and Antonio is warned about reaching above his social status. Do you think it's a bit weird that in the majority of the first 20 or so lines of the play, they're all about a king and a kingdom that are basically never mentioned again? That's not a mistake. The play opens with a description of a particular model of power, which is then contrasted against the corrupt model seen in various courts of Italy. Webster clearly had a deeply cynical view of the court, and that view extends outwards to the ways in which he portrays relationships you wouldn't think of as political. The Duchess's relationship with her brothers at first is domestic, but is ultimately governed by the same power dynamics that the court is run by. When looking at morality and ethics, the bottom line is they're in decidedly short supply. In Jacobean tragedy in general, you see traditional Christian ethics in a state of decay, and this play in particular feels like morality and ethics hurt you way more than they help you. Some critics believe that in the face of hopelessly corrupt world that Webster writes about, human dignity always comes out on top. Even though the world around her is horrifying, the Duchess's own personal definition of decency somehow insulates her from all the moral nastiness that eventually leads her to death. Loss, hatred, corruption of human society are a few of John Webster's favourite things. It's hard to read The Duchess of Malfi thinking it should be billed as bad things happen to good people, and there are several points in the play where Webster seems to write in a little moment of hope just so he can punch you with some more agony. Particularly in the second half of the play, Webster starts playing on the idea of contemptuous mundi, which generally refers to the idea that the world is a wretched, empty place compared to the fulfilment found in religious contemplation. The Duchess's desire to beget herself a shining new family with a man of her choice directly clashes with her brother's desire that she remain their single, obedient sister. In Renaissance times, the family hierarchy was such that an unmarried woman was almost under the control of her male relatives, and it drives her brothers nuts that, as the widow of a nobleman, the Duchess isn't just a free agent with her own court. As a ruler, the Duchess has two bodies: the body natural, her actual physical body, and the body politic, her identity as a sovereign. While we talk about the Duchess's body, it's good to note that by marrying Antonio, the Duchess is essentially putting her private life, her body natural, over her political life, her body politic. This means that while the Duchess is totally within her rights to remarry, in the particular way in which she goes about it in The Duchess of Malfi is pretty irresponsible. For a lot of The Duchess of Malfi, it looks like the ability to manipulate and cheat is what keeps you on top. The Duchess and Antonio are fine as long as their own lies keep them afloat. But when the superior machinations of Ferdinand and the Cardinal kick in, things rapidly go downhill for the couple. The only problem with this is that none of these characters, up to and including the Master of Deception himself, make it out alive. Even the Cardinal, as good as he is at lying and cheating, is eventually caught up in his own web, ultimately getting murdered while his own courtiers listen, standing idly by per his own orders. The Duchess of Malfi fixates on the relationship between prince and servant and presents us with multiple versions of that relationship, ranging from the good to the bad to the ugly. The play doesn't just deal with social and political duties, though, it's also about domestic ones. You could easily describe the main conflict of the play as the collision of the traditional duties of a woman to her male relatives with those of a free prince.